that has been a problem for so long, but has only been coming out now because all this stuff is so secretive. But anyways, it's a ways away for that.
Hmm. That's interesting. So how does that like does that trickle into your life at all, or like how did you notice this? How did you first like start thinking about this?
Um, it just for me it became like a source of a lot of frustration. Also, by the way, we're live. Welcome
Okay.
everyone to the show. We'll keep going, but I'll just do a quick little intro. Um,
Yeah.
this is Verda, also known as at Verdakorz. Better on X, saw that she was building stuff. Wanted to sit down, so thank you. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to make room for this conversation.
Yeah. Thank you.
My pleasure. Um, but yeah, just to go on your question there. It began as like a source of frustration of mine that like a lot of these things were just not being openly talked about, which I think is in part due to the media ecosystem in Canada, where we have like a state-run media that is actually pretty big. Like they earn, I think, about at least a billion, if not 1.2 billion, every single year from our tax dollars, and their view counts are drastically lower than you would think. I mean, they spent like tens of thousands of dollars on this one podcast, and my new show gets more views than theirs does, which like is insane because like I don't understand how you can justify doing something like that only for it to get like below 500 views. And that's just like that's a minor problem. Like the foreign interference thing is actually huge. Like we have right now current sitting members of our parliament who either wittingly or unwittingly collaborated with foreign countries like China and India to pass certain laws that would be more favorable to them or favorable to their national security interests. Um, their names have not been leaked. They will not be leaked, as far as we know, even though we used to hang people for that because it's treason. And there's just a lot of issues like that that just I find they're not getting covered in the right way. Like there was one guy that came up with, let me see if I can find it. Um, he came up with an LMIA map. And LMIA is the government program that allows for businesses to hire foreign workers. The problem is that as of late, what's been happening is a lot of these companies, what they do to scapegoat the system is they will put up a job ad and then report to the government that because they weren't able to fill that job ad with the labor that's here, that they now have free reign to put up a job ad for international workers to come in. Now, you would think that that's like something that would require some kind of specification regarding um, the type of job, like maybe white collar or like just very specific, like intricate work that we just don't have the labor for here. But then this guy on Reddit, I forget his username, but he drew up this map and he showed all the businesses that are actually using this program, and a lot of them were like McDonald's workers, warehouse workers, like very basic, like low skill labor jobs that we could certainly find the people to work for here. But because the wages would be subsidized by this government program, a lot of the business owners, to save money, they applied to this program. And as it expanded and grew, our unemployment rate, especially for youth, has gone much more high, like a lot higher than a lot of people are comfortable with naturally. Um, I have a buddy that he was working like in an Amazon warehouse. Now he works at a graveyard, and he's just been doing these jobs. And he's smart, he's capable, but it's just there's this shortage of those kind of jobs for people to even just get a leg up because of this program. And it wasn't until like this graph was actually made that I realized like, oh shit, like this is a problem. Like that this is a huge problem. And this kind of stuff gave me inspiration for wanting to build something like that of my own, because I think like the way that stories are presented has a massive impact on their actual impact and what happens as a result of it. And now because it's so easy to visualize data, I figure, well, why not? I'm sure I could do something like this.
Oh hell yeah! Especially if you use like Claude or Cursor. Yeah.
Yeah,
It'd be
exactly.
super. You
I've
can do it like yeah.
I started with Claude and I asked it like, hey, like how difficult would it be to get or how would I go about collecting, such and such statistics that are available on our government websites? How would I go about um, plotting the graph data? Like, explain it to me in the simplest of terms, as if I'm retarded and I don't know anything about coding, which I don't. Full disclosure, and it gave me a good breakdown. I was like, okay, this is actually feasible. I could actually do this.
Nice. Nice. I'm really excited to see this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
God. And
yeah. No, go ahead.
why did they subsidize? Do you know why they subsidize it?
Well, like I said, because it's cheaper because the government or are you asking like why the government created this program?
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know the actual the specific outlined reason. I would assume that, like I mentioned before, that it would be like to fill certain specialized roles or just jobs that nobody wants to work for or work at in Canada. Like we have a lot of migrant labor that actually comes in from Mexico in the summer to work on the farms here, at least or out in the west in the western provinces. Um, so for jobs like that, I could understand. But I mean, when it comes to like you're in a downtown core in a city of 10 million people, in the economic hub of Canada, which I'm pretty sure Toronto's either top one or top three. Um, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand why you can't get teenagers to work a counter serving coffee. Um, it just makes absolutely no sense. And we've also had issues with like regarding immigration where a lot of colleges popped up in the last couple of years, which became essentially diploma mills. So they were like people were buying their degrees essentially with basic college programs, which ended up being a scam. Some people paid upwards of like 20, 30, maybe even like $40,000 for this. So all their immigration papers would get filled out. They come in, they do something like Uber Eats or any of those kind of jobs where you're not really required to have a lot of background info or work experience. You can just download the app. Um, and a lot of those people came under false pretenses. Like whether or not we know that they knew that, there's no way to tell. But a lot of them are here now, and as a result, like rent has like skyrocketed. Cost for food, cost for everything has been going up. So there's quite a few issues that Canada's going through right now that I think they could be explained in a much better way so that people are actually aware of like just how bad this is, so then they actually like, okay, we need to do something about this. We can't just ignore this. We can't wait for the headlines to come. We need to preemptively act.
Yeah. I think that reflects like that's also an issue here. Maybe at a lesser scale. I'm not actually sure what. Yeah, you're right. I don't actually know how bad it is. It's kind of hard to estimate what kind of data that is, especially like when you have your own life and you have like a bunch of things that you got to do every day. Thinking about these things is kind of, just an extra thing. So I really think that this tool that I think about making would be so useful.
Yeah, I hope so, because I really only started learning about all these scandals like once the investigation started rolling in, once like all the headlines started pouring in. And then you look at the story and it's like, oh yeah, this program got started like 10, 20, 30 years ago with these such and such people that were elected in such and such position. And we're all just kind of reflecting and looking back on it, when in reality it's like, okay, well, hold on. There were some real indicators along the way here that this is going to go wrong, and they were either ignored or, I guess, I don't know, just weren't deemed important enough, for whatever reason.
Right.
And we're like, I think we're moving into a place where like that's not really, it's not, first of all, it's not acceptable in the first place, but two, it's getting, the consequences are escalating. They keep getting higher and higher and higher, and like nobody should be working 2-3 jobs and still having a hard time paying rent, even in a city like Toronto. Like it didn't always used to be like this, right? Like something changed along the way. So whatever it is, I want to help more people get to the bottom of that, because like as you said, even in SF, like why is there such an issue with rampant homelessness? Why is there such an issue with the overdose rate? Like in the mecca of tech. It's very strange. When I spoke to Jivan, he told me the same thing. Like it's very jarring, the difference
Yeah,
of like how you like you can go to your office and you work on like the next edge, like cutting tech, and then you walk out and you see a dude with a needle in his arm. Like how do those worlds combine?
right. Yeah, I know it's super like
Like
you have people who are working on, you know, like psychic AI or like chintzy shit, you know what I mean?
mm,
When there's literally so many huge problems and entropy that's being created. And like I don't know, it's just really it is very overwhelming kind of. But definitely things to keep in mind as you choose what to do and how you do it.
yeah,
Because yeah, I think people just don't realize that like things don't fix themselves, right? Like everybody has to work together to make things, you know, not decay.
yeah. No, I totally understand that sentiment. It sometimes feels as though we've kind of fallen asleep at the wheel, um, not just politically, but just with a lot of the ways that our societies are run. Um, and when that happens, when people are uninformed or they feel powerless, it allows all the people that want to take advantage of that system to come in and say, okay, well, I'm just gonna do what's best for me and look out for my own selfish ideals, and then that's that. But
Which is like not bad. I mean, ideally
yeah,
we live in a world where everybody can focus on their selfish ideals, and that leads to harmony. Like when everybody is like focusing on their most selfish ideals, you know, like what they feel good doing, you know, etc. Ideally, that would be a world in which everything functions flawlessly because everybody is doing the things that matter the most to them, right?
mm-hmm.
Like, I think the goal of like an organized society is to harness the selfishness of man and make that into something that's like good for everyone.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the basis of the capitalist system for people uh, to seek out profit motives that enrich themselves, but as a direct result of whatever service or product they're offering, if it's popular, if it serves a purpose, if there's some kind of a need for it, it's going to create jobs. It's going to lead to innovation. It's like that's in the ideal form. Like that's what it's kind of supposed to do. Like Tesla makes a lot of fucking money, right? But
Yeah.
that's not their only profit motive. That's not their only goal and vision. Um, and obviously like not every company is going to be altruistic, but even those that are like really good at making money, like really fucking good at it to the point where it's like a sport to them, they still offer like a lot of useful services. We might hate them, we might hate like dealing with their customer service lines, or they might fuck us over with contracts or terms of services, but like they still provide an effective service. It's kind of a mixed bag, but that's a more realistic way of looking at the world.
Yeah, and the only reason they're allowed to do that, the only reason they're allowed to do the stuff that they do is because they offset it with good actions. So if somebody comes along and does more good actions with less like offset, less bad things, they're going to win. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's going to happen. But like I think that um for people to start things takes a is like harder it's harder for them, I guess. So I mean it is hard in general just to start anything, especially to do it with like any degree of organization. But yeah, no, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's in terms of like building solutions, because I from what little I know about you, you are like in the is it like the makerspace? Is that what it's called? Like the 3D kind of printing space? I don't know what the
Yeah,
term would be for it.
yeah. I'm building like a 3D printing network so people can um just get things made without having to know how to use a 3D printer, but like still be able to fabricate really fast. That's my end goal.
Gotcha. And when you say a network, do you mean like if I was to go on a website and put in an order for like I don't know, like a Trump figurine, like the one that you guys made there,
Yeah.
which I thought was fucking incredible. I loved that thing the moment I saw it. I mean, this is it's first of all the colors are accurate. He is Cheeto orange. Um, the tie could be a little wider. I think you guys missed the mark on that one. I think it could be just a little bit wider there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, like this NFC thing that you guys the chip that you guys put into it, it triggers the dance. I love that. I love little things like that.
I mean, this does not reflect the political affiliations, of course. We are nonpartisan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did think that it would sell a few figurines for my makers. So I was like, this is a worthy cause.
Right. So, in terms of what the network looked like, does that mean that like you would have some kind of like a physical location somewhere that pumps out these 3D prints, and you guys just have like printers ready on standby, and then you have a whole like warehouse crew to like ship these things out, or like what does the network as you envision it look like?
So that's kind of already a thing. I mean, yes, that would be an emergent property of like this successful thing. But the idea is that people are able to like we're turning garages into the world's largest factory. You know what I mean? Like people can just sign up whatever machinery they have in their house or their garage, and that can be like their making capacity. And if they choose to expand, then we will like support them to expand. But ideally this is just a way for people to like pool together resources that are unused right now. So like if you have a bamboo and you only use it for like an hour a day and somebody needs like a bunch of things printed for like a startup or something, you know, like there's this guy who makes like prosthetic hands, right? Somebody
Hmm.
needs help printing a bunch of prosthetic hands, you can help them and they'll pay you.
Oh, okay. So it's not that you guys want to have like a warehouse and you own the printers and all that. You guys want to create a network of nodes where people that just have the tech lying around or they just don't utilize it all the time, that this would give them an opportunity to um, join that network and actively participate in it to the point where, like you said, like if somebody needs a prosthetic limb or some parts made or whatever, they could just go on that service, type in their request, and then off it gets sent to whichever node in the network.
Right, yeah, and going a step further, I mean, that's just like one option is like I want to give individuals access to like a large amount of manufacturing capacity, but also I want to have like creators, you know, people who design things to be able to just upload their designs. And then like somebody can upload a design from Tokyo or whatever, and then somebody in San Francisco can have it the same day, right? Because it's just a file being sent across an ocean rather than like a physical item being shipped, which to me is much more efficient. I mean, I think that's one of the greatest advantages of 3D printing is that you're able to do that.
Gotcha. So how would this then be different than because I've seen some of the sites out there that have like free vectors, 3D models and whatnot that categorize them like I think there's an entire website that's just built for ghost guns. But there's like a ton of these little marketplaces where people can actually download either free designs or paid ones. What is it that would separate you guys from that? Is it just because the platform would be able to encompass not just the sharing of designs, but then also being able to tap into the different nodes, or?
Well, okay, yes, the tapping into the different nodes is great because, like, if you upload your design right now, you kind of risk living in obscurity. Like, the people who might need it might not have a 3D printer, right?
Hmm.
And they might not want to get a 3D printer because they might not care. They also just, like, might never know it exists because they don't care about 3D printing, right? And then the other thing is royalties are really hard for designers to come by. Like, yeah, you upload your file for free, and then what? You just spent like a couple days of work and got nothing. Even though your design is cool, you get
Hmm.
nothing. So, except for cloud, cloud is not nothing, but still, I think that designers should get more fairly compensated, and then I feel like that would also lead to more innovation.
Gotcha. And in terms of compensation, we don't like have to go into details or dollar values, but how does that um how does that work? Like, would it be like a subscription service that people pay into this, or like where does the actual like sustainability, like the profit making, happen so you guys can keep doing this?
Yeah, every transaction a percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Unclear what that percentage should or will be. I think like as it grows, it'll make sense for us to think about that more. But right now it's like 10%.
Gotcha. And so this would be on is it the verdex.cc website there?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay. So this is essentially what it would look like. Yeah, I saw some of the designs earlier. I love that like that they like tap into the trends like the Moodang, which I mean, man, whatever happened to that? Everyone just kind of forgot about Moodang.
I know. That's just like, so I only started this like a month or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like thinking about things that can be generated from images. Because like I think the generation aspect is really cool. Like
Yeah.
allowing normal people who don't know CAD software to be able to make things.
Well, speaking of which, how did you guys get the like what kind of tools would you use to get a 3D model generated from an image? Because I think I saw some spaces on Hugging Face that allowed you to do it, but I can't say that I'm certain that.
Yeah, Trellis would be a great start for meshes for like organic shapes, but zoo.dev is probably the best place for text to CAD right now.
Okay, gotcha. Oh, I see it here. Yeah, Trellis.
Yeah.
Oh wow, they have a
Yeah.
lot of models.
Yeah, a lot of models.
Interesting. Wow, these are really really good. I mean, the detail on some of these just from a single image is incredible.
Yeah, no, it's really what Trellis is doing is very interesting and cool. I like really, if next time I get like a good few days or if nothing going on, which is like highly improbable, but you know, I'm just gonna deep dive into Trellis and figure out how to like just use the model with my site rather than pointing people towards a paid service.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And
Yeah.
so in terms of the utility for 3D printing, so besides obvious applications like for amputees, as you mentioned before, or for just like making little figurines, what is it that it would allow like a person to do, like just besides building like, I don't know, like little tools or like widgets like around the house, because I've wanted to get into the 3D printing space for a little while now, and I certainly will be getting one this year. But in terms of utility, for the average person, where do you see that actually kicking in?
So eventually, I see the average person having like their own robotics, right? You know, like attachments you can put on your trash can so it takes itself out to the curb.
Right.
Is going to be huge for me personally. But like that's like the future of 3D printing as I see it. And like that will just enable it to happen really fast. Like you'll be able to mod your own stuff. Think of it like modding, but for your actual life. Like I've had a 3D printer since the 6th grade. You know, like I have backpack attachments that hold my keys so I don't have to like forget them. I've like printed backs of Xbox controllers, like just everything that like having a 3D printer has just allowed me to like sidestep so much hassle of like ordering things or buying things or finding the right thing. I don't know, plastic is just like is so human, and being able to mold it however you want to. I also think like learning CAD or 3D modeling is probably the biggest. I think learning CAD or 3D modeling is probably like the thing that makes 3D printers the most useful to you, is just like you're able to take anything from your mind and make it into real life.
Yeah, so in a way, it's like an agency machine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a replicator from from Snow Crash, you know, or not Snow Crash, Diamond Age. I mean, I don't know if you ever read that. It's like a science fiction book, but basically it's like a machine. You can say, hey, make me this, and it will make you that. And then if you get more specific, it'll make you that thing as well, or like something new. Which is like, the way I'd like to do this is just, you know, more utility, less waste, which is always good. Like, you know, things that are multi-faceted or like specific to a user are really important to me. Like custom keyboards, custom I don't know, hangers is a funny one, but yeah, I've made a custom hanger. And I don't know, there's such a wide variety of things.
Oh yeah, no, the custom hangers actually clutch as fuck. Some of mine that I have, my clothes just keep falling off on occasion, and it just pisses me off. I'm like, God fucking, like, man, I gotta figure out my hanger situation because I don't know if I gotta get new ones or what. But yeah, like having the ability to just be like, okay, well let me see if I can engineer something. Maybe I can add a little clip. Maybe I can actually like just build a hanger from scratch. What have you? It just allows you to like you said, to deal with a lot less frustration in the world. You kind of you actively participate in the creation of your environment, which isn't something that like we do, you know, per se nowadays. Because I mean, just about every piece of infrastructure that will ever be built has been built in terms of, you know, roads, land, and whatnot. Like, yeah, sure, there's gonna be projects and whatnot, but we're not exactly in the pioneering days where you can just till some land in the middle of a park. So something like this that actually allows you to, even in a little way, change your environment.
Yeah. No, I know a guy in Michigan who makes like $6K a month printing car parts for people, like mods so they can hold stuff in their car, or like just things that make their car more ergonomic. You know, like that's another huge thing is ergonomics. Like I don't think we realize how important it is to have like friction-free environments. If you can do anything that lessens the friction between like you and taking out the trash, that will lead to a better life.
I mean, yeah, it sounds a little bit silly, but it's true. You're not, you don't have to force yourself to work with what you have when instead you can just take some time and engineer something to make it work for you instead. And why not, right?
Yeah. And then like it's the same philosophy for software, right? Like people do that all the time. They just like write their own software because they're sick of the tools that they have, and it turns out to be better than the old tools, and everybody starts using it. And I think that could be the same for objects, right? Like people could just make something that works better for them and then post it on the internet, and other people could be like, fuck yeah, like you just solved a huge problem for me, and like could find that, and it could be like an indexed solved problem. But then if we just like did that for all of like, if all of humanity did that and we just iterated really fast on like physical objects, I just think that could be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you combine that with robotics, and as the parts and materials get cheaper and cheaper, and you know, having something like a metal 3D printer even doesn't become as much of an obstacle as it used to be, you know, 10 years ago or however long it started.
Yeah.
That would enable a lot of people. I mean, like you could you could dumb it down in the simplest of ways and be like, okay, well, do you want I don't know, let's say for example, like if your drawers just don't shut the way that they should and you need something to compensate for, like, I don't know, the speed on the rail or what have you, like, oh, here's a robot that can, I don't know, slow it down or what have you. I don't I might be just over engineering it, but just trying to think of an example. But yeah, like you could easily just,
Or like 3D print a new drawer that's not such a tight fit.
yes, yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and especially if it could just like match the drawer that you already have, that'd be great. I don't know if you saw the guy who was like posting the 3D printed oven knobs on Twitter.
Yes. I actually I did
Yeah.
want to ask you about that. So there was some hubbub of people like complaining about this or something, and it just reminded me of that meme where it's this like bean looking guy pointing at a hot dog on a skateboard. It's like this fucking thing sucks. That's like the coolest thing ever. It's like, yo, why would you be mad about this? Why, like, it just so they 3D printed it. It's so fucking what? Like, who gives a shit? This is awesome. Somebody took it upon themselves to figure this out. And I've been having a problem with my knobs, and I did not want to pay for some fucking $50 a knob piece of shit like from the original manufacturer. I was like, what the fuck, man? The 3D printer would have solved me this headache. Why am I still doing this?
So true. Yeah. And I think that there's so many use cases exactly like that. And like his wife liked it. So, you know, they can, the online trolls can piss off, I guess.
Yeah, it was just
I
I
mean,
don't know why I got some backlash. I was like, this is cool. This is actually pretty cool. Like they took it upon themselves. Like, okay, so they're not metal, so they're not like of a certain material. Okay, fine. Like who gives a shit? He saw a problem, took
yeah.
the time to fix it, and he made something new. And now people that have the same problem, or maybe the dial goes out of stock when the company goes down or what have you, like now you have an actual design that anyone can use if they wanted to. I mean, there's 3D printers in some libraries in certain cities, so you don't even
Yeah.
have to have it half the time.
Yeah. And I think like, I mean, you can do whatever kind of a knob you want, right? And that is huge. I think everybody should have the things that they want, you
Absolutely, yeah.
know? So if it's worth more to you to pay $30 for an oven knob, sure, go the fuck ahead. But for a lot of people, it's like, I just want an oven knob that works and I want it for the cheapest price possible.
And that's fair. That's more than fair. That's your God-given right as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And in fair markets, you know, like things like that just start to exist and life becomes better as a result.
Yeah, like it would be really cool if one day uh every hardware store was outfitted with like 10 3D printers each at like Home Depot and Lowe's and what have you. And it's like, okay, well, if you don't have the part, as long as you come like with a couple of images of it, or if you know like the website where they sell the original, we can just manufacture it for it here. I mean, as long as there's no patents on it, there shouldn't be an issue, right? Like, I don't see why there would be an issue.
Yeah. I mean, I want to go even one step further. I want you to be able to like pay the person down the street to make it for you if it's easy enough. I mean, hardware store would be, in my opinion, for like metal 3D printers or resin or like stuff that's more dangerous for home use. But if you're just doing FDM, no reason why you couldn't just buy it from down the street. And it's the way for kids to like make more money while being creative, right? Like my little brother fucking loves 3D printing. And it makes me sad that he just does not make a whole lot of money off it. I'm like, you are so creative. You could do so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And regarding resin printing, I've seen photos of how that works, but what can you tell me about the process? Because I'm not all too clear on how the printing process actually happens.
Yeah, so basically you have like this UV light, right? And what happens is like there's a tube or there's like a bottle of resin which is like goopy, and then the slicer takes the 3D mesh or whatever of what you've made and what you want to make. And it uses that mesh to create code that cures the resin as layer by layer. But there's much more insignificant layer lines on a resin printer than you will get on FDM.
Gotcha. So this actually does it layer by layer, and I guess there would be UV light, right at like the line for where the resin ends. I'm assuming, yeah.
Correct, yeah. And it cures it as like, yeah, layer by layer.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I mean, that's a wicked thing to see. Like, 'cause I pulled up the video here. I don't know if you could see it, but of just the process as it goes into time lapse. And I mean, this is as close to like forging something as you can get. It's so
Yeah.
wicked coming out of the water. I'm sure it takes hours and hours and hours, but at high speeds, it looks. I mean, man,
Not
like
actually. It takes like an hour probably, or like probably a little bit more for those bigger objects.
Oh, so it wouldn't take like a whole day or anything.
No, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Wow, this is massive. And how big can these printers get? Do you know of any that are like absolutely huge that I
Oh,
can look up?
massive. There's some that are like refrigerators. If you look up Stratasys 3D printers, you'll probably see some of those.
Stratasys, as you said?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
They actually held the patent on 3D printing until 10 years ago.
And they just let it out for the public?
What?
And they
Oh,
let
no,
the
no,
patent go,
they were brutal. They held that patent. They would not let anybody else touch 3D printing. But then it finally expired, and the rep movement began.
Oh, okay, so the patent expired. And like what, they just couldn't refresh it?
They couldn't renew it, yeah. No, they were not allowed to renew it because they were like keeping a community from a really cool technology. It's not cool.
Okay, so they own the patent like for the entire scope of 3D printing technology.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, and nobody had access to it. I mean, I think a few attempts were made to make them regardless of the patent, but none were as successful until, there was commercial incentive.
I mean, that is insane. I mean, you're like, that's on the same level as having a patent on making pottery, which is fucking ridiculous. Like, I don't understand how they even got away with that for as long as they did. That's a creation process. Like, I understand if like, okay, maybe the way that their nozzle works or their laser scanning tech or something like that. Okay, sure, I could understand that being proprietary tech, but the act of printing something itself, like that, it just seems very strange how they got past that.
Yeah, no, it's kind of silly. But yeah, I mean, in the last 3D printers have come so far. Like the 2014 Ultimaker, which is like one of the first 3D printers, could do 100 figurines in like, I don't know, I think it's like something crazy, like 7 to 14 days, but like just not a lot. Like took so long, was way too expensive per hour. But now like the bamboos are like 2 or 3 days for 100 figurines, and the cost per hour has gone down by like definitely a significant amount. I forget the exact numbers, but yeah, it's like 3D printing is exponentially improving right now. Kind of amazing to see.
No, it certainly is. I was actually looking to maybe get one as a gift for someone this year, and I was looking at prices, and I mean, even with our silly Canadian money up here with the exchange rate, it was still like maybe 300, 400 for a starter unit, which like you could make that money working minimum wage, no problem, for a paycheck, and just buy one of these, which is insane. Like you could just make it and be like, all right, well, now I have 100x my potential leverage, and the world is my oyster.
Exactly. And like my goal is to make it so that is like super, like super lucrative, so people are incentivized to like design new things and help like be a part of the world that they want. So I think that's one of the best ways, is to just be really engaged.
Gotcha. And so, like, what a portion of the platform that you guys, I assume you have a team behind this.
No, actually, it's just me. And well, okay, I do have a team. They're just not like officially a team. It's just like people who are also interested in this cause.
Gotcha. So this initiative we have, would then would there then be like a portion of the site or platform, or whatever form it takes, that's dedicated to people just being like, look, I'm looking to build this specific part, I need these kind of dimensions, and it's just like this whole like database of people with requests, and others can log on and be like, okay, yeah, my printer could do that if it's these specifications, or you could even like set up a profile so that your you could select like, okay, I got these kind of 3D printers, these kind of capabilities, I have access to these kind of filaments and materials and so on and so forth, and then that would kind of like, I guess in the easiest way I could explain, like essentially like Tinder match people together to projects. Like it'll be like you log on and it says, oh, by the way, there's 10 new items that people are looking for, and it actually fits the specifications of your printer. Here's the breakdown that you could make monetarily, and so on and so forth. Would that be essentially how it works?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer like the Uber dynamic more than Tinder. But yeah, that's like, it's kind of like we need to get from here to here. How much does it cost to do that? And the idea is that it prices that out pretty fairly. I'm still working on the pricing system, but like right now, if you go on there and you like log in, you'll get like quotes from a bunch of different makers who are signed up to my platform.
Gotcha. And how big is your the network now? Are you guys global, or are you still just focusing mainly on building out of SF?
It's about 30 people around the West Coast. It's not necessarily limited to a specific area. Like I have some people in Michigan, but most of them are on the West Coast. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And like steadily growing, getting more interest. Like what have you guys seen in terms of progress as of late?
Yeah, steadily growing. I mean, it's good systems take time to implement, and like I'm fine, like waiting however many amount of years it takes for this to actually be like very useful in a community or an organization. But I mean, like right now it's just silly stuff. Like people want Nancy Pelosi printed, people want their faces printed. Like there's just a bunch of silly toys that you can make with it that people enjoy quite a lot. And that's kind of most of the demand right now. I know I'm getting orders for like weed cakes, which like if you want to know what that is, it's a Vegas thing, and it's just like I don't even know how to explain it. This is probably the weirdest thing that I've come. Well, no, not the weirdest thing I've come across in the 3D printing space, but definitely up there.
It's a Vegas weed cake, you said?
Yes, yeah. So it's basically a cake, and then but the cake is a bong, and the cake part is just 3D printed, and then there's candles on top. And I don't know, people in Vegas pay a lot for it or something. It's kind of epic, actually, like an amazing innovation on humanity's part.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't seem to find an image, but I'll take your word for it there.
I'll send you Instagram.
Instagram, let me see. Barely use it because those reels are a fucking one-shot psycho bomb that'll have you waking up the next day wondering where the hell the time went. But yeah, let me send you my username. Yeah, just send a DM in Discord.
Oh, okay. I DM'd it to you, but I will send it to you in Discord as well.
Oh, sure, okay. Interesting. Okay. Do you see this being because as you said you want to work on it in the long term, do you see this being integrated somehow with the civil service, like with local municipalities, or is it just going to remain like a private enterprise kind of deal for you guys?
Probably, yeah. Private enterprises, I think, is the best way to approach this. I definitely see like room for partnership. That's one of the reasons why I'm like, maybe I should like get a job to like really get on the front lines and like understand what's going on. But yeah, that's definitely a consideration. It just depends like where it can be the most useful, right?
Mm-hmm. And in regards to scaling the platform, what are you finding right now is the some of the bottlenecks for that in regards to getting more people on the service? Because from my understanding, the strength or like the effectiveness of it is in part related to how many people are signing up and are available on the service. So what are you finding in regards to that issue that you guys have been working on?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is like I'm 19, I've never done anything like this before, and like I am very human and definitely make a decent amount of mistakes when it comes to like pricing on the platform, like building out the infrastructure, setting up all of the things. I mean, like I've been in the software industry for a few years now, and um, like it's just kind of a it's one of those things where it just like takes a brain power, if that makes sense.
Sorry, you got a little muffled there. It takes what exactly?
Oh, it takes like a decent amount of brain power and like just like doing things all the time, and we're only like a month or two out. But I actually see that like this could be useful very quickly. I just need to find like the right use cases to inspire a lot of people to help out other people with their 3D printers.
Gotcha. Because one way comes to mind. I don't know. Maybe this isn't the right fit, as I'm not as knowledgeable in 3D printing. But uh, what about dealing with issues around like disaster relief? Do you see that 3D printing could somehow help with things of that nature in any way? It just came to mind because of all the fires that you guys are experiencing there in Cali right now.
Yeah, no, that's a really good. I've been thinking about that actually, and I've been like looking for ideas to do that. During the hurricanes, there were a lot of like 3D printed mods that came out to help like break windows that have to like get into houses that had been like knocked over essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be a useful thing as well. Yeah, I definitely need to look more into that. Actually, like um yeah, I think things like that are probably one of the best use cases here.
Yeah, because I mean, you'll be able to have people use it in real time and test it, instead of just like putting up a design and hoping that at some point, someday, someone will take a look at it and use it, or having like an on demand service. But something like this, like being able to create, I don't know, like a not a survival kit, but just like a suite of tools that people can use, um, when they're trying to mitigate the disasters, and they could be applied like year in and year out because, well, in America you guys have hurricane season and a lot of tornado action, and you know there's no end to the 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 issues in regarding the environment, that you guys just have. As the nature of like just being such a big country, it's like it's bound to happen. It's only a matter of time, really.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, things like that I'm definitely very interested in. It's just that I am one person and somewhat of a distracted person at that. So these things take time. But I've recently like ended a program that I was really busy with, and I think that now I'll have a lot more bandwidth to dedicate to like finding the actual use cases for it. Now that I'm done building the app, that takes a lot of that frees up a lot of my power to search for things like this and like actually make it useful to humanity, which is the end goal. So yeah, no, I mean, I so appreciate you talking to me about this. It really helps to like say things out loud. Also, I feel like a lot of my communications is done over text, but yeah, this is really nice.
Oh yeah, no, it's like it's ideal. A lot of the reasons why I started doing this series is because I just wanted to talk to interesting people that are working on stuff that I don't get to interact with on a daily basis. Like I work as a receptionist, so like I'm not really talking to like rocket scientists or venture capitalist people in my day to day. But so far, I've been able to, thanks to this podcast, and giving space to people like yourself that are building stuff extremely important, because it's not enough to just it's not enough to just like post and to write about this stuff. Having someone be able to sit down in a conversation and explain their thoughts and their philosophy behind what they're doing and getting that out there, like that, for me anyways, it serves as a solid reminder that like you can just do stuff, and that has never been more important than it is now, I find.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, it is like in a world with such comfort, it is hard to realize that like everything we have around us was made by other people who are like, striving to advance humanity in some way. And by like just enjoying that comfort and like relaxing, I mean, it is good to do that sometimes, don't get me wrong. But like by not, I think like a lot of people my age feel unfulfilled. And I think a result of like, that's just a natural result of not doing things to like, not doing the best of your capacity, like not using all of your capacity,
Mm-hmm.
which like it just feels good to do something that only you can do, that is helpful to other people, and like however that manifests is probably good. Even if you do things the wrong way, it's better than not trying it at all, which is something I'm learning pretty quickly actually.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. From like where I'm coming from on that is that for a lot of my life and things that I've seen and like systems I've been part of, whether it's like university or the job market and whatnot, it's as you said before. There's a lot of inefficiency regarding to people putting hours of time into certain works, and there's nothing else, like you just said, that like the feeling of being able to take agency even if you do fall short of the mission, that like at least you took the initial first steps and there's something to be learned there. Because I mean, the way that we've been doing things up until now, it's worked, but all these like various systems are just kind of slowly breaking down, like whether it's the political engagement or the economy or what have you. And it's just, I think that there's just been too much comfort, as you also said, that we've become too complacent and kind of forgotten what it took to get us here in the first place. So having that revival, having a resurgence of that is key, because well, I mean, I don't trust the people in charge right now. I don't really have a particular affiliation to them. I much prefer to talk and listen to people like yourself that are actually going out and doing stuff instead of just waiting around and hoping that innovation comes about. It's like, no, like, we got to engage with it personally. Otherwise, nothing is really ever going to happen. Like, even if you fail, it's like, okay, well, you just built the foundation for the next person to come along, or for you in the future to take that and learn from it and then evolve upon it and build something like actually useful. Oh, is your mic on?
Oh yeah. Sorry. I think it's also really easy to, like just work in a silo and like work on things that you find cool. But I think that it's so useful. I mean, what I'm learning recently is that it's so useful to just like go out and participate in society as well as writing software, like just going out during the day, learning about problems, and then going back to your home at night and just like writing a bunch of code or whatever to solve it, rather than just like educating yourself even more, which is like cool, necessary, also sometimes. But I don't know, I've spent a lot of time, on the internet, um reading books, etc., and nothing helps me so much as just participating in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might not feel like it, or at least it certainly didn't like at first with just like uh writing posts or like newsletters or what have you, but building like your own little corner out and finding other like-minded people that are just doing stuff. I mean, I don't know where I would be now without Twitter, because all this like this whole idea for the Whitepill project, everything that I've been doing, I've gotten just from being on Twitter and seeing all these great people build stuff. And then I look at my own life and I'm like, wait, I could just make something too. Like, why don't I do it? I mean, there's so many free software tools. There's so many communities out there. There's really no excuse as to why the problems that I see out in the world, why I can't at least like contribute in my own little way. And I should. It's actually it's incumbent on people to do it, because otherwise the system is just going to exist as it does. Nothing's going to improve, and we're all just kind of waiting for an Elon Musk figure to come along and save us. Well, there's really only one of them, so I not to say that he's our savior, but um, as someone like that can offer useful solutions to like all these big problems. Like we don't have that unless people take more agency in their life.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I think that it's so cool that this movement was a thing. And I'm just like really happy to be a part of it and like live in this time where this is like normalized and okay. And, just like all of these interesting people who actually care about like hard problems. I think Twitter is a great place to find that community.
Oh yeah, no, massive. Like I only really made my account like in the last I think 2 years or so, but it was primarily because like once the Twitter files came out, I realized okay, this is actually like this is a big fucking deal. Like what's happening with Twitter and what is going to happen in the future is a really big fucking deal moving forward. Not just for access to information regarding political scandals or what have you, um, but just in the ability to build a network and meet interesting people. Like I still can't believe that like one of the guys that I follow and I've interviewed, I'm sure you've seen him before, but it's a guy named ML Propulsion. He's somewhere out, I think, I don't know if it's the Midwest region. I forget what state he's at, but this guy just builds rockets for a living. Like he does it like as his job on a day-to-day basis, and I'm like, that's fucking cool. Like I've never met a rocket scientist in my life. I gotta talk to this guy, see what's going on. And I was able to like ask him all my stupid, silly space questions because I have no background in it whatsoever. And I was like, oh, this is fucking awesome. I feel like this actually helped me understand like why this stuff is important, why this move that we've at least seen in the U.S. mainly, um, to expand on I don't even know what you call it, the space industry, I guess. Why it's
Yeah.
so vital. It's not just like a project for billionaires, as like the media or a lot of haters like to say. It's like no, like this is absolutely vital to the survival and expansion of the human species. Like that's a non-starter. This is absolutely vital. We need to be doing this.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. Yeah. So what do you think are the most like important problems? What have you been observing? And like what other people have you talked to that you think are working on interesting stuff? I'm so curious.
Um, well, let me see. There's ML Propulsion, who I spoke to about the rocketry stuff. Jiven, obviously. He was a really good interview because he, of all the people I've seen on Twitter, he's one of the few that stands out as someone that like is exemplifies that you could just do stuff. Um,
Mhm.
the way that he was able to just manufacture and capture cloud on X was a fucking masterclass. Like his whole like all his websites and trinkets that he made were really fucking cool, and his story as well. Like the guy never went to college, graduated high school a year early because he took it upon himself to see if there's like a test for him to like that he could take to get out of school early, which I never even knew that you could do. If I knew that, I would have fucking done it. Um, but yeah, so Jivin was really cool. Tuna was he was really interesting. I don't know if you've interacted with him, but he works primarily. He operates like in the Twitter space of like trying to get as many people in tech to understand what the employment landscape looks like in the sense of like helping them with their resumes, or even like I think he has an AI tool that he built as well to kind of analyze people's resumes. And he does a lot of work, even like tutorials. I think he does calls with certain people to like go over um, what kind of career they want for themselves, what kind of problems they want to solve, and he's really trying to make an impact on that front. Because from what he told me, uh, a lot of people that are graduating in these computer science programs, they think that this is going to be like those day in the life videos that went viral like about a year or two ago, where people are making 200K for email jobs. Um, when in reality, it's not that at all. And he told me that he's seen a lot of stories where people, uh, first year out of college, because they're not getting that 200, 250K like immediate position, they're just turning it down. And he's had to tell them like, no, like you don't understand. Like this is not this is not how the real world works. Okay, like I've been in this industry for decades now. I worked my way up. Like you really need to understand the landscape of this, which is important because there's so little that's discussed in regards to like career paths. At least I find in my experience in like the university system or college system in the U.S. Or even like high school. It's very lackluster. It's really left up to the individual to do their own research. So it was really cool to
Mhm.
talk to him about that. Um, but regarding the problems, I think that one of the bigger ones is something that the Center for Humane Tech highlighted. Um, this is an organization that did the remember that Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma?
Yes.
Yeah. So the guys that head this organization, they were actually the ones behind it. And name is Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin. Um, Asa actually is the man that's credited with coming up with the doom scroll function on social media platforms.
Hmm.
So he actually, I think this would have been the early 2010s. Um, he was working in Silicon Valley, and he just kept getting frustrated, like using all these apps. He's like, why the fuck do I have to keep going to the next page? This is so stupid. Like, there's got to be a better way to do it. So after some thinking, he's like, wait, why don't we just keep the newsfeed refreshing as as you keep scrolling down? That way, we get rid of the pages. There's no frustration, seamless movement. And at the time, it's not as if he was like, oh, this is like $1 billion idea that I could maybe not patent, but like try to like monetize. Like, no, he decided to take it upon himself to go to Google and all these big companies and to hold talks with their engineering teams and explain to them like why this feature would be useful, how it could help with user engagement, and so on and so forth. But he didn't foresee like what kind of hell he would unleash. Um, being well, the ultimate example being TikTok and how addictive that is. So funnily enough,
Right.
after that, he then decided to work for the Center for Humane Technology, which is actually working against all that stuff. Funny enough. Um, but anyways, in this talk that they gave called the AI Dilemma, uh, they were talking about how the first kind of contact that we've had with algorithms or like an AI adjacent technology would be social media, and we failed it. We failed it epically. We allowed it to capture our attentions in a way like nothing else has. It's created a new form of digital addiction. Rates of suicidality and issues around mental health have only been rising steadily since then. Um, and so they came out with this talk. It's about an hour long. Highly recommend everyone gives it a listen. Um, and they started talking about how like we're about to go into the next iteration of this technology with AI, and we were woefully prepared for social media. So we really need to um, not necessarily enforce safetyism, um, but we need to consider what it means to create technology that is humane, that doesn't work against us, that doesn't poison us, something that enables people to leverage their capabilities while still also not cutting them at the legs with ads or trackers or what have you. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the bigger issues is that like a lot of these apps, it's hardwired into them, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that's definitely one of the bigger ones, and that's a monumental challenge because then you're talking about okay, well, who else is in the AI development space? What other nations are in it? How fast are they developing their tech? What are the safety parameters regarding um, a lot of these models? Like OpenAI famously didn't release their text to video model during the election, specifically because they were worried about deepfakes,
Hmm.
which is an interesting move. And then after they released it, it actually, from what I understand, it actually wouldn't have worked all that well because you could clearly tell if it was AI or not. But I guess just to err on the side of caution, they decided not to do it. Um, so that's definitely a big one, um, because it, in a lot of ways, it links to dead internet theory, which I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's this idea that the internet is more than 50% made of bots, um, and so that becomes very very dicey when these bots have profiles and huge followings and nobody really knows about them, but they can influence millions of people across the globe. I mean, Russiagate was like the big kind of major scandal that came out in regards to that, but now we're dealing with tech that can 10x, 100x, 1000x, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's really sad because like there are actually a lot of people who are actively working on that in the name of like marketing or whatever. When there's just like why is that where the money's at?
Do you mean
I
regarding
know that's
social media?
yeah, it just indicates a huge flaw to me that like people can make a lot of money by causing harm to our society.
Yeah, I mean, even in the most rudimentary of examples, like you have, there are entire departments in companies like Frito-Lay's, who make like all the Doritos and whatnot, or Coca-Cola, of scientists whose entire job is to make the product as addicting as possible using like whichever formulas they can and like combinations of ingredients and whatnot. Like they have people with actual like PhDs working on this stuff. So like your kid is not going to have a chance of being able to face that when you have an entire team of people that's like, okay, what is the psychological profile of our clientele? Now, how do we take that and harness it so that we can maximize our profits? What kind of a mascot do we need? What kind of colors? Like, it's so granular that the average person is just like, oh, this cool new shiny thing that everyone's trying and I've seen commercials of. Well, I guess I'll try it. It's cheap or free, or it's accessible, and a lot of people seem to be enjoying it, so why not? But then it's only like years later where people are like, oh yeah, they actually just like put straight up chemicals in there, or they made it as addicting as possible, or the government had some kind of a role to play in how addicting it was, or what kind of information was allowed to be on the service. Any number of things, right? It always just
Right.
comes in like after the fact. But we're at the point where like, we can't really deal with scandals like that and not have just earth-shattering consequences. Like the Twitter files, that was the biggest one for me, where I was like, oh, this is a problem. This isn't just like them censoring people that are using slurs or outright like racial hatred or what have you. Like they're actually just going against people that are educated and have a differing opinion than the people that are in power. And that's a problem in a free society like America, especially.
Yeah. Yeah, no. That is definitely a concern. More so the fact that like so many people's source of information and like news is social media. It's kind of just like, I know that it's easy and convenient. It's just kind of unfortunate.
I would actually, I would disagree in terms of it being unfortunate. I think it's for the best, because I deep down believe that corporate media needs to die sooner than later. I think they've outlived their purpose, and they've really had a mask off moment in the last couple of years where we've seen profit motive come above and become more important than actually telling the truth, or political leanings and associations that these organizations have. Because first and foremost, they're a business, right? Compared to, say, an independent blogger or a journalist that, okay, sure, they don't have offices in Dubai and India and what have you, right? Like CNN, but they have on the ground footage, or they have actual interviews with people. And yes, like, we have to comb through what's true and what's not, but we've also had to do that with the general media. I mean, there was a story I saw. This was back in, I swear it must have been like the 60s or something. It was about I think it was a coup. There was some issue with some kind of government political change regarding the administration, and this journalist that was being interviewed, I think 10 years after the story broke, he came out and he basically said, he's like, oh yeah, later I learned that the whole thing was a CIA front, and all the facts were fabricated, even though I'd reported on the story as the truth. So like all this stuff regarding like fake news and how Trump has been reacting with the media, that might be recent, but these people have not been honest with the world, like not even just the American people, but the world as a whole for the longest time. And it's understandable. Like they want to make sure they don't lose access to all the various politicians. They don't want to anger the rulers of the country in which they operate. I get that. The world isn't black and white, it's shades of gray. I understand. But that can't just be the only way we get information. I mean, it can't. We can't just rely on these people and hope that they have enough goodwill, especially with what we've seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not to say that, like, I think social media should be like a supplement to news. It's just like firsthand experience is always the most objective truth. And that's why I think like volunteer work is so important to like keep that alive and keep that to be a thing, because that way like you can have people participating in more systems than they usually would. And I think that's kind of like the future of work, right? Is just like more modular human beings who can move around through different different fields and just do a lot of different things and participate in a lot of different systems. Because if like a lot more people understand what's going on in every aspect of the world, it'll be easier for them to like catch entropy.
Say more on that. What do you mean in like if you were to imagine like what that looks like if it's applied to a society or a country, what does that actually look like to you?
Okay, yeah. So I mean, ideally, a robot will eventually replace a mailman, right? Mm-hmm. What is this mailman gonna do now? The mailman should probably like go work maybe at the mail office or maybe at the mail system, but like also the mailman could probably work on other things that have to distribute, like the USPS mailman could also go over to USPS and be like, hey, what are you guys doing over here? I used to be a mailman and I know that you guys are doing this badly and you can do this better. Like, or maybe he could go to Recology, the trash services, and be like, okay, so here's how we do it at USPS and the mail store. Like, this is what you could be improving. Like, I think people cycling through different jobs like that would actually be really helpful in like creating better systems. But this is just kind of like a random idea I've had. I don't know how well it would actually play out, but it would definitely be interesting to. I think this is kind of like the whole role of consultants, but like I also see consultants as kind of like a non-ideal role because it's like they're not super incentivized to like actually be honest and help the future of a company. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, with consulting, that's actually a field that I wanted to go into for a moment, but I think the best way to kind of encapsulate the role of the consultant, I think there was a talk that Steve Jobs gave at a university. I forget when. That must have been like maybe the 80s or 90s or something like that. In any case, what he was saying is he was sitting in a room full of business grads, and he asked all the people that were going to go into consulting to raise their hands up, and he's just like, oh, Jesus Christ, God, fuck no, like, we do not need this many people consulting. And it got like a laugh from the room and whatnot, but he's like, no, like, you guys, like, you don't understand. Like, the point is, if you're divorced from the outcome, if you're divorced from the risk, if you're divorced from the process of making a thing, if you're not as invested in it as the person that is the creator of the company or the person that's the designer of the product, then whatever advice you give, okay, fine, it's engineered, fine, it's there's focus groups behind it, okay, fine, you have such and such psychological studies to indicate people would react to this, this way in the market, okay. But if you don't have that spirit and ambition of someone that could wake up tomorrow and their company is now just defunct because of, whatever issue, if you don't have that kind of pressure riding on you, then you're not going to be as invested in the outcome, and you're going to be distancing yourself at least a degree or two of separation, and that's going to reflect in the effort, right? Like somebody that's just advising you on how to run a business doesn't feel the same way as someone that's maxing out their last credit card, trying to make sure that they can make it to the next quarter or what have you. Hello? Oh, I think we lost you there.
Okay. Yeah, also I think there's like a sense of glory and like just it just feels so amazing to have an idea and work with people to make it happen that you just don't get as a consultant, because you're just like very, it's like, I'm here for my money, I'm here to like, yeah, help you, I want to help you. And like the best case scenario, consultant helps you, right? And you're like, and they like do something that is good to your goal. But like if somebody in your organization would have done that and like had that insight and done that, they would feel much more close to your company, because they're getting like a sense of validation that they like have a reason to exist, right? And that's not to say like consultants shouldn't exist. Like, yeah, there should be independent parties who are being like, yeah, you guys are, but I just think that if they are people from other companies who their companies like rely on the results that this company is making, I think that could be cooler.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, at least here in Canada, speaking of consulting, one of the issues that we found here with the use of consultants for government work is that the amount of money that the Canadian government has continued to spend on the reliance of consulting has gone astronomically high. I mean, if I can get a dollar figure, let me see if I can find it here. What's the price of consulting contracts total last 10 years? I think it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And a lot of the decisions that these people have been consulting the government on have not exactly been great. Sorry, I didn't say hundreds of millions. I meant to say 15.1 billion.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was that high. I had no fucking clue until I opened it up. The previous administration that we had, which was the Stephen Harper government, they spent, it says here, 2.2 million from one company alone. But under the current administration, the Trudeau government, they have increased to 66 million, which is a threefold increase.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've sunk quite a bit of money into consulting, and as I look around, just even in my neighborhood, and I mean my country as a whole, doesn't really look like we're getting our dollars worth. So I'm not too fond of consultants, to be frank.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, even with that, the idea that you mentioned there regarding giving people displaced by automation the opportunity to use their skill set in a different way. I mean, that's going to be key in the next couple of years, because even though like robotics, like yeah, we're accelerating and we're getting better and better and better. But from what Tuna told me in the last podcast that I did with him, he mentioned that, like, for example, the issue with a lot of the warehouse robots right now, with the ones that they've set up, like Amazon, they did a demonstration with one of their robots, I think it was about a year ago or so, where it was actually like a humanoid. Let me just see if I can. Yeah, there it is. The problem that he mentioned with me, with that problem, that robot rather, is that it's good and all if the environment that it's in never changes, and that it's able to, scan the QR codes, pick up the pallets, so on and so forth. But apparently the main issue that they're dealing with right now regarding this kind of automation is what happens if there's a spillage or something drops from the basket. It's very difficult for at least right now, with the tech being the way that it is, for robots to adapt in real time to their environment. And there's like, developments that they're making in that regard, and the technology is getting better and better. But right now, it seems to be one of the issues. So there are still like stopgaps where machines are they're not able to replicate the same kind of quality of labor as humans for a little time now. But especially once it gets to, like automating manual jobs, it's like, okay, well, now you have to have somebody that's competent at making sure all of that remains organized, that the automation keeps running, that managing relationships between businesses, right? Like that's still going to be a human facing role. You're still going to need people to do that. Or even in the meme on X that I've seen in the last little while is that, we're moving into the age of the idea guy, because robots and automation, like they're having this, they can have a huge impact in terms of physically moving things or physically doing things, but somebody being able to prompt generate or create a list of instructions or like understand this network, like just anything like that requires a higher level of thinking, we're still going to need a lot of people for that.
Yeah, no, and I think there's definitely going to be like human intervention, right? It's just like, I don't know if you know about like 3D printed houses, right? These machines can create a house, like an entire 2,000 square foot house, for $20,000, and it takes 2 people and like a few days. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, I've seen that. It's I don't know if you can see this here, but I just pulled up an image of one of these concrete printed houses. I've seen some of the machines there. Yeah, is that basically what you're talking about?
Yeah, that is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But like, I just see a lot of things like that. Like a few people, maybe like 2 or so, just making sure that things work fine. But yeah, the dynamic systems that are able to react and change and evolve with the input of new stimuli is actually something that's making pretty decent progress. And I might even start I've been working a little bit with this company to help with their humanoid robots in the past, and I might take on like a full-time role with them to like continue doing this. I'm still unsure whether like it would be better to do this or like go into some kind of like civil servant role to get a better understanding of how things are working. But yeah, I don't know, it's a complicated problem. I mean, but I do think that we're not more than 10 years away from it.
Yeah, and that's pretty fucking impressive that you're thinking about that at 19 and you have like a potential offer from a company to do that. Because when I was 19, I was not thinking about this stuff at all, or even had like a frame of reference in regards to it. That's pretty like fucking impressive. Did you just I'm guessing you never went to college, right? Or did you fast track it, or like what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so basically I graduated high school, like I got all my high school credits early, but my parents would not sign the paper to like actually let me graduate early, because they're like, you want to stay in high school as long as you can. So I just like ended up going to a community college and did a mechatronics program where like you learn like CAD software and how to use a lathe and like a drill press and a CNC machine and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like my experience in the education system. That's what I did for like my senior year of high school, and then I like also got a software engineering job on the side. And then they were like, can you guys, it was for a software consultancy actually that was building like an ERP for hardware stores to manage like their invoices and like digitalize all of their paperwork. And then so they were like, when I was about to graduate, they were like, can you just keep working for us full time rather than going to college? And I was like, you know what, this is actually kind of a good idea, because I can work from home, like I can explore the world and like figure things out without having to like commit to a degree or like go into debt. So yeah, I ended up doing that for a year, and then I quit to work for a 3D printing company.
Interesting. Yeah, that's quite the fast track you're on. Because as I said, yeah, like when I was 19, I was not doing anything near that cool. Um, that's pretty fucking awesome, and how excited you are to be working on all this. Um, I love to see that spirit in people. I love that there's people like yourself out there that are working on this kind of stuff because it it is fundamentally important. Like we need to accelerate. If that's like the simplest way I could put it, we have to like absolutely must accelerate. And the way that we've been solving problems as of late is not working. We need something new. We need more people like yourself to actually take a crack at this stuff.
Yeah. No, yeah. I feel really lucky to have like a situation like to be born into a world where like my biggest problem is like what is my meaning in life? You know? Like extremely lucky. That's wow, like this is a thing that has not happened for most of human history is like somebody can be just be born into like a place of such prosperity that like you go through a phase of being like, oh, what do I do? I don't know what to do, you know. But like, yeah, I feel very lucky to have found, like where I'm at right now, and to be able to, like, potentially have an impact on the world is probably like the best thing I think that I can do, both in terms of like meaning and like I don't know, just everything. It just feels so good to like think about problems that afflict humanity.
No, absolutely. I totally get where you're coming from with that. Because there's only so much that theory can do. There's only so much that just reading and studying nonstop can do until like you're actually in a position to enact that change. Um, like my educational background, for instance, I studied the social sciences in university, so uh, basically like just a general liberal arts degree. I went like I did history classes, English, sociology, psychology, anthropology, just a little bit mix of everything. But the thing that frustrated me the most was that at no point was there ever a moment in class or a class that I could take that was actually trying to think about introducing solutions to a lot of these problems. And so, as a sociology student, at least if you believe in what you're studying and if you love it, it's very difficult to not become black pilled because all you're learning is look at all the issues with homelessness, look at all these issues with race, look at all these issues with culture or war or famine or what have you. But never did we stop to think like, okay, well, fine, let's see the world for what it is, but let's actually do something with that. And I wasn't even the only one that like had this kind of thinking. A professor, like I was having a conversation with him at the end of one of his classes, and we're just like in the elevator, and randomly he just turns to me. He's like, Mark, don't you find it a little bit strange that you're taking all these classes and you're learning about all this stuff, but at no point are we actually asking our students to come up with solutions to these problems? Like we're not crowdsourcing or trying to understand the landscape of solutions that exist before us that we could actually apply to this. Like shouldn't we have some kind of engagement from the people that are getting these first rate educations? And it stunned me because I was like, okay, it's one thing for me to have this thought like on my own. It's another thing for somebody that's been in the system for decades to like pose that question to me, and I'm like, wait, like why don't we have that? Why don't we have more engagement from people on all these big issues, or even the small ones in our local communities? Like that's very strange how we learn about all of them and we hear about all these scandals and issues in the news and so on and so forth, but like no one's ever asked for my input on them. And it's not that I have like something to offer, that I'm like some kind of level of genius, but it's like, well, I'm in the program, I'm learning all the stuff. Like I feel like I should kind of have like at least an opportunity for me to put something out in the world, or join an organization or what have you. Like in the engineering space, it's one thing, like you can build a 3D, like make something out of a 3D printer, or write some software, and you can iterate instantly. That's one of the beautiful things about that kind of the makerspace. But with something that's more loose and kind of theoretical, like sociology or psychology, in terms of applying anything, like you're talking about, okay, you gotta do a PhD, you gotta write a book, you gotta become maybe a political consultant, like to have any kind of leverage, and even then, that's like decades down the line. Um, so it's just something that I found frustrating in school. That I was like, no, like I want to be around people that are building solutions to a lot of these problems, and that's what I love about some of the stuff that you're doing and others on Twitter. That you can actually you can iterate at lightning speeds anywhere around the globe, and you can share this progress with everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the ultimate documentation, right? Being like the ultimate documentation is like somebody else being able to reproduce it and like having that knowledge imprinted in their brain of like, this is how the system works and this is what you can do to continue it. And that's something that I think is like really missing lately, is just like people learning how to do things, like how the system is actually like, they're learning all of the things that is wrong with the system, but there's a lot of control being taken away from students, I think, because they're just like, for 4 years they do like a lot of people just don't do that much, you know, they party, they drink, they like learn about all of the like learn about income inequality and like everything, but you know what would really teach them about the world and how it works is just like literally putting them into the world. Like I think apprenticeship is probably the best fucking thing we can do right for like a lot of people right now, because it sucks to feel out of control in like a group of your peers who don't give a fuck about anything except for like their next hit of dopamine.
Oh yeah, no, I'm all too familiar with that problem. That was the cycle that I got caught up in university, unfortunately. Um, and mentorships, yes, absolutely. Have you ever done a mentorship or been part of one yourself?
Yeah, my first software role was actually an apprenticeship, and yeah, I just like learned a lot from the people there about like how the world works and like why we build the systems that we do. I don't know, just really good people.
Yeah, because I mean, as you said, the theory will only take you so far. Like you actually have to execute um, to actually get in there and understand why the problem exists as it does and what the possible solutions are. Um, at least in my own personal life, I've worked as a dishwasher, I've worked as a cook, I've painted houses, I've done just about, well, not just about everything, but quite a few like these random jobs. And you know, it's one thing for me to learn like monetary policy and like econ 101. It's another thing
Mm-hmm.
for me to actually put my labor out on the market and, you know, after finishing my studies, go and wash dishes for 10 hours and then, you know, just look at the trajectory of my life and I'm like, okay, well, now I understand the value of a dollar a lot more than I did just circling numbers in class. Now I realize, okay, something has to change. Something has to improve. I got to leverage my capabilities better. It was a lot more of an informed instruction than just simply
Yeah,
like reading texts and doing readings and so on and so forth.
right. Okay, Whitepill, I gotta get going because I have another call coming up here in 4 minutes. But it was so good talking to you. Thank you for reaching out, and I really look forward to like hearing more of your opinions and like keeping up with your podcast. This is super cool.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate you making it on. I would love to have you back, certainly, because I'm just looking to talk to as many interesting people as possible. And I mean, shit, I said it before, like being 19 and finding yourself in the mecca of tech and the creator space and doing what you're doing with the Verdex platform, and all these ideas that you guys have in the future, it's nothing short of incredible. So hats off to you guys and your team. Uh, Best of luck with everything. And in terms of your socials, so it's just at Verdakorz. That's your main.
That is my main. Yep, that's my main and only.
Perfect. So yeah, shoot her a follow, guys. Hopefully we'll have her on sometime in the near future. But yeah, thanks again for coming on. Would love to have you on sometime
Thank you
soon.
so much. Yeah. See ya.
Take care.